Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? Matt here, back again with another review for a video game. This time, the excellent Neon Inferno by Retroware. They provided the review code, so getting that out of the way, thank you to Retroware for that. I know this is a day where, hey, there's a big new Nintendo release, but instead, I'd like to divert your attention, please, over to this awesome new indie 2D side-scroller shooter. So, what do you get when you take a game that takes Contra and Wild Guns and cyberpunk aesthetics and sprite-based pixel artwork? You get Neon Inferno. And this game caught my eye earlier this year with a really cool demo. And then, of course, the game came out and it got a slight bump back to November 20th. Here we are today. And yeah, and surprise, surprise, the game is actually pretty awesome. Now, these are from the developers of Steel Assault, which I'm not familiar with. But yes, at the end of the day, what you see is what you get. You're getting a really awesome run and gun shooter, again, in the vein of Contra and Wild Guns and games like that. But yeah, it's co-op, but it's not online. But it is a very reasonably priced game. I believe it's available for $20. So yeah, this is pretty much a short and sweet game. It's not super long. I feel it's actually about the correct length. I think there's a lot of problems when you get some of these like retro revival games where, okay, it's 2D and it's like a classic gameplay, you know, from something you loved on the NES, but like we have to make it like double or triple the length of those games to get your money's worth in. Personally, I'm not really a huge fan of that idea. I feel sometimes that sort of makes things take a little too long, honestly. This is the length of, say, an original Contra game, like the first one or Super C or something like that. So, again, it feels a lot more perfect to me in that aspect where, like, they're not just copying the style of gameplay, they're also copying the length of those games, because I think there's something to be said for some of those classic NES games. Like, yeah, they can be beaten quickly once you know what you're doing, but, you know, making them 3 times as long, I don't know. It feels like they wear out their welcome, but that's not the case here with Neon Inferno. Neon Inferno is a game that definitely felt like just the right amount of length. So what makes this game, again, separate from the others, which is, like I said, the Contra mixed with Wild Guns at any given time. As you're playing the game, not only can you shoot, you know, forward and above and below you, but you can shoot into the background and foreground by holding down a different button, very much Wild Gun style. You also have a dodge mechanic, which is Wild Guns-ish as well, but it also works even on the plane you're standing on. And then you also have the ability to parry the bullets, which is kind of unique. I don't know if anything of a game like this has ever had that, but yeah, you can parry green bullets and green grenades shot at you, and that's kind of where it sort of like makes its mark, you know, in the game world. The other thing is you can hold down the parry button and you can direct where you're going to shoot, you know, the bullet that's been shot at you. So you can shoot it, you know, in any direction or even into the background, giving it a lot more depth to it. If there's any one thing though about this game that I feel maybe is a little might be a little disappointing or a little interesting is the power up mechanic. So if you're familiar with Lords of Thunder, Gates of Thunder, or games of that ilk, it uses that kind of a power up system. And what that means is between every level there is a shop, and in the shop you can buy different weapons. The different weapons in the game, they have ammo counters. They're limited ammo on them, so you're not like going to find them throughout the level. Now, what that makes this maybe a little disappointing is that you can't get ammo refills in the level. You basically just buy the weapon type in the shop between levels. And so yeah, it's very much like Lords of Thunder in that sense, where it's like you get one shot, you know, between levels to buy something like that, or buy a shield for your character, or something of that nature. And I think what kind of compounds this problem and makes this maybe a little stricter, a little harsher than, say, Lords of Thunder, for those who are familiar with that TurboGrafx era of shoot 'em ups, is that the money you earn in this game, or rather, the items in the shop are really expensive. Like, you have to do really, really good, like darn near perfect. And again, you get graded at the end of every level with 1 and 5 star rating, except you can only get a 5 star if you do a perfect run on hard or arcade mode difficulty, meaning you have to basically be perfect at this game to even get a 4-star difficulty on medium or normal or easy. And again, the items in the shop are really expensive. You're pretty much first time, second time through this game, you are not going to be able to buy more than one thing at a time for the shop. And that is shared currency between player 1 and player 2 if you're doing this co-op. So if there's any one sort of fault I kind of have with this game, it's that it makes the different ammo types super expensive. And again, they're limited. There is an ammo counter on things like chaser shots or machine gun or what have you, or like a wave, with because you have a melee weapon, which is what you use to parry, which is the knife. You don't just automatically knife people like in Metal Slug. You actually have to press Y, but it is good. But yeah, you can put like a big a shock wave on your gun. But again, these things, they cost a lot of money, and you don't earn much money in the game. Like even at 3-star, you earn maybe enough for one thing. So if there's any sort of like fault I can kind of have with this game, it's that it really makes the upgrade stuff like really expensive, and you're maybe going to see one per level. So I guess it kind of encourages replayability, but on the other hand, it also does feel like you're kind of playing the game with the same gun the whole way through, rather than getting upgrades or getting ammo throughout the levels or whatever. The other thing that I think a lot of people might be a little like thrown aback by, and I think it was very intentional with this game. My feelings was it was an intentional design decision, is that there's no grenade and there's no bomb. Like in Contra, you had like a small number of bombs that would do a screen wipe. Or in Metal Slug, you had, your little like potato masher grenades. There is nothing like that in this game. There's no secondary mechanic. Like your secondary weapon is your melee weapon, which does do good damage, but again, you have to be up in someone's grill and slash on their face, to make it useful, which also means it doesn't work at all on things in the background. So yeah, you're playing a Contra game where you basically have your basic gun, and that's going to get you through. It's better than say Contra's main gun, which is sort of a pea shooter compared to these, because you can just hold down the button in Inferno and it just goes. Like your character has a crazy crazy like fast fire rate. So you don't really need to worry too much. It's not a problem. But again, you're not going to have that sort of like, oh, things are getting really intense. Let me just do a screen clear, like, a bomb, to wipe the screen real fast here. So there's no mechanic like that in this game, which I think does maybe feel a little bit like a slight missed opportunity, where it's like, hey, this could have been something that might have been a little more fun to like add to it, or like do something to like to help you with the chaos. But I think the idea was that because you're going to be shooting in front of you, front and back, and then you're also going to be shooting into the background, and you're going to be parrying green bullets and green grenades at the same time. I think maybe the idea was that, like, look, we've got enough mechanics in the game that you're going to be constantly worrying about it, on top of like dodging and double jumping and what have you. So, maybe the bomb was just like too much, or maybe it's just too much buttons to like deal with. But yeah, it is kind of a weird thing where yeah, like there's no screen clearing mechanic. And again, to use the parry, I should have mentioned, there's actually a meter. There's an electric meter that has to be charged up before. You can't like parry. You can't bullet time. You can parry all the time, but you can't bullet time redirect the bullets unless you have your meter built up. So that's what the point of the meter in this game is. But yeah, other than that, that's like the really only slight negative I can say, is that you basically are going to be using your default weapon like 90% of the time in this game. It feels like, maybe if you're buying more and using it more, you can, you might use the other, the stuff you buy from the shop more. But yeah, that's more for replays, because you're not going to earn much money the first time through. As far as difficulty goes, easy and medium feel pretty fair, and there's pretty decent checkpointing. Hard mode and arcade mode are kind of nuts, because you still get checkpoints on hard mode. Arcade mode is you got 1/4, kid. Make it count. So hard mode is relentless because it takes, arcade mode is relentless because it takes hard mode, which is relentless, and then it gives you one life to do the whole game with. Again, not a long game, but you'll definitely be needing to memorize this game pretty good before you're ready for arcade mode, because yeah, like they're gonna throw things at you all the time on hard. So it's still, though, so you get that challenge, you get like a good replayability, because again, I think it was intentional to make things so expensive, because they didn't want you to say do well on level 1 and then buy every weapon type or buy every gun type in the shop on for level 2, and then you've seen all the game has to offer you. I think making it expensive is kind of a way to sort of, okay, well, one per level lets you really sort of try things out as they come along, right? It gives you replayability that you wouldn't otherwise have. So, as far as everything else goes, like, again, the graphics, phenomenal graphics. The soundtrack is very, very good. In fact, there's parts of the soundtrack that really surprised me because you get this, the obvious synthwave stuff and the techno stuff, but you also get sort of like, I guess, softer pop, and you get jazz, and you even get opera. They're like straight up full on opera music in one of the levels. So for a game that's not super long and is very much doing the cyberpunk theme, it actually has pretty damn good, decent music variety, and the music is good all around. So like, really big hats off to that. They went about as hard on the music as they did on the sprites here. So huge pleasant surprise for me was how really good and really varied the music ended up being for such a fun, smaller indie title. So again, really getting your money's worth on this one. So I really enjoyed this game. I've beaten it me and Nadia, we've beaten it a couple times co-op, on various difficulties and I've dabbled a bit on hard. It's very good. And I like the fact that it's actually not very long. I like the fact that you can beat it, in a couple hours, that it is a classic Nintendo game. And if you're like, well, it took me 6 months to beat as a kid. Yes. Your first video game when you're 6 is definitely going to take you longer, than a video game in your 30s or 40s is going to take you nowadays. So congrats on being good. But yeah, like, I think this is the perfect price, just about the perfect length for the genre. And again, great co-op. It doesn't have online, but again, this is sort of like the kind of experience you definitely want to experience with a friend. You can always parsec it on Steam if you get that version. It's available on all the mainline consoles right now. And yeah, I think it's definitely one of my favorite games this year. I'd personally rank it 9 out of 10 because my time with the game was extremely fun. I enjoyed it start to finish. And again, the only thing I really would say is that, like, yeah, it just feels like you don't really get to use much of the secondary guns much in the game because of how expensive they are. And not having any refills in the level also kind of sucks because then you have to be very careful about when you're going to use, your reserve or your special gun. So it kind of to me, that kind of takes away the fun of experimenting with different weapon types when you make it so hard to get them and they run out of ammo, unlike your main weapon. So that's it. 9 out of 10. Otherwise, absolutely one of the best, dollar to value games that come out this year. Loved it. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you on the channel later, dudes.